First episode of Fightland opens by introducing Duke Kilroy, a heavyweight boxing champion whose greatest victory is immediately followed by the darkest tragedy of his life. 8 years before the present-day story, Duke stands at the peak of his career after winning a major championship bout in Las Vegas. Behind the celebration, however, he is secretly involved in a romantic relationship with Joy Marshall, the wife of powerful boxing promoter and crime boss Kingsley Marshall. Their relationship is hidden from everyone, but it soon becomes clear that Duke's personal and professional lives are about to collapse. On the night that should have marked the beginning of his legendary career, Duke is ambushed by men who intend to destroy his future. Rather than killing him, they target the hand that made him champion, hoping to end his boxing career forever. Duke's younger brother Calvin steps in to protect him, but the confrontation turns deadly. Calvin is murdered during the attack, leaving Duke devastated. Consumed by grief and rage, Duke hunts down one of the men responsible and beats him to death. His revenge lands him in a Nevada prison, where he spends the next 8 years while Kingsley Marshall's criminal empire continues to grow stronger. When Duke is finally released, he returns to London expecting to confront the man responsible for ruining his life. Instead, he discovers that Kingsley has mysteriously disappeared. Nobody seems to know whether the crime boss is hiding, dead, or secretly controlling his empire from the shadows. In his absence, the Marshall family struggles to keep both the legitimate boxing promotion business and the criminal organization running. Rather than charging in with violence, Duke chooses a far more calculated approach. He realizes he cannot get close to the Marshall family by acting like a threat, so he decides to let them believe prison has broken him. With little money, no reputation, and nowhere else to turn, Duke deliberately presents himself as a washed-up former champion, desperate for another chance. His first move is surprisingly clever. Without waiting for permission, Duke publicly announces that he is planning a comeback fight. The announcement catches Zeke Marshall completely off guard, forcing him to publicly support the idea to avoid looking weak in front of the media. Duke successfully manipulates the situation, giving himself a reason to enter Marshall Promotions despite being unwanted. Inside the company, Duke accepts humiliation without complaint. He allows himself to be treated like a low-level employee instead of the former champion he once was. Cece and Zeke laugh at him, convinced that prison has destroyed both his confidence and ambition. They see him as a broken fighter willing to accept scraps simply to stay relevant. But Duke's willingness to endure insults is all part of his plan. By lowering everyone's guard, he gains access to the inner workings of the Marshall organization. Instead of attracting attention through open revenge, he quietly observes people, listens to conversations, and searches for weaknesses that he can eventually exploit. His enemies mistake patience for defeat, giving him exactly the opportunity he needs. However, Duke's greatest weakness is also obvious. Despite creating a smart strategy, he struggles to control his anger. 8 years of prison have not erased his desire for revenge. Before building enough protection around himself, he interferes with one of the Marshall family's drug operations, creating problems that immediately attract unwanted attention. His actions suggest that while he can think several moves ahead, his emotions constantly threaten to ruin everything. The episode also explores the growing divide within the Marshall family. With Kingsley gone, his children inherit different pieces of his empire, but they have very different personalities. Cece is intelligent, disciplined, and focused on business. She oversees the family's gambling operations and clearly understands how her father built his organization. She rarely lets emotions influence her decisions and possesses quiet confidence that makes her an effective leader. Zeke, on the other hand, is impulsive and desperate to prove himself. Throughout his life, he struggled to earn Kingsley's respect, and now he tries to compensate by acting tougher than everyone around him. He enjoys humiliating Duke because it makes him feel powerful, but his oversized ego makes him vulnerable to manipulation. Duke quickly recognizes that Zeke is much easier to control than Cece. While Zeke believes Duke is harmless, Cece is far more observant. She pays attention to people's behavior instead of their words, making her the biggest threat to Duke's deception. If anyone discovers that Duke is intentionally pretending to be weak, it will almost certainly be Cece. Meanwhile, Joy Marshall represents an entirely different complication. Unlike Cece and Zeke, Joy knows the man Duke used to be. Before his imprisonment, they shared a passionate affair that neither has truly forgotten. Even after 8 years apart, the emotional connection between them remains obvious. Duke may be pretending around everyone else, but Joy remembers the fearless champion behind the performance. Joy is no ordinary gangster's wife. She has ambitions of building her own empire instead of simply supporting Kingsley's. His disappearance creates an opportunity she may have secretly wanted for years. Her growing independence adds another unpredictable element to the power struggle inside the Marshall family. Their reunion is filled with unresolved emotions. Duke returns, believing his love for Joy remains unchanged. But he cannot know what sacrifices she has made during the years he spent behind bars. She now lives inside the family he intends to destroy, making every interaction between them dangerous. The episode also raises an important mystery surrounding Calvin's murder. The attack that killed him was supposedly meant to destroy Duke's boxing career by permanently damaging his hand. But the violence seems unusually personal. Since Duke was secretly involved with Joy, the story hints that Kingsley may have discovered their affair. If that's true, the attack may have been motivated by betrayal rather than simple business rivalry. The premiere never confirms this theory, leaving viewers with more questions than answers. Away from the Marshalls, Duke reconnects with the few people who never abandoned him. His friend Jay welcomes him home with genuine loyalty, proving that Duke still has someone willing to stand beside him. His father, Gazer, is far less affectionate. Although he gives Duke a room above the family gym, their relationship remains strained, suggesting old wounds still haven't healed. These contrasting relationships remind Duke that, while some people still believe in him, others continue to blame him for everything that happened after Calvin's death. By the end of the premiere, Duke has successfully infiltrated the Marshall family's world, but his revenge is already becoming more dangerous than expected. His carefully planned bluff is working, yet his impatience keeps placing him at risk. Every reckless move threatens to expose him before he uncovers what really happened to Kingsley, and before he can avenge Calvin. The episode closes with Duke focused on only one thing: finding the next opportunity to strike. He isn't trying to rebuild his boxing legacy or repair every broken relationship. Instead, he believes that survival depends on winning the next round, exposing the Marshall family's weaknesses, and eventually forcing Kingsley out of hiding. Whether Duke can keep his emotions under control long enough to complete his mission remains the biggest question heading into the rest of the season.